Can you name a genre of music dominated by white people that glorifies gang violence?
Uh, Not really.
When I think about how the hip hop genre includes gang violence to a level that you have white people joining in, you have different cultures that are just worlds away from us in terms of geographic locations that are trying to adopt a lot of our culture. I think it's interesting how black people can have an entire genre of music that glorifies gang violence, but we can't name a country music or like rock music or pop music that glorifies gang violence.
When I think of different mediums or forms of entertainment or things that we consume today, I always think about the lack of integrity in people, because it's more
Mm-hmm.
important for us to just get the bag, no matter what is being put out there to the masses, instead of saying, you know what, I'm not about to go sign up for nothing talking about kill this bee and slap that hoe, and you know what I'm saying,
Mm-hmm.
because that's not who Black people are, or that's not our culture, or that's not what I want to be put out there for people to see. Or, I think of reality shows, those different type of mediums that get put out there. And, kind of to what the point you were saying, yeah, we could say, okay, but it's white people who own these record labels, or it's white people who own these media companies. But at the same time, it's Black people who are signing up knowing this, and still doing it for the sake of entertainment. So when I think of it, it goes to me back to lack of integrity that has been
Mm-hmm.
missing from our community for a long time, for the sake of just getting a bag.
I 100% agree. I think that point is the biggest one, especially in regards to we don't have to take the money. Like you hear
Correct.
porn stars complaining about their agents and being recruited. I'm like, did you take the money? And not to make light of like sexual assault or sexual abuse in a lot of these arenas like Hollywood and Epstein, all these things. Definitely a lot of abuse, especially in regards to minors and all these things. But in regards to adults who make decisions, and when you have options, especially in the world of
Correct.
smartphones where everything is at your fingertips, and you have people that are saying, "Well, I was trying to get out of the hood, and so I decided to go sell drugs, and then from selling drugs, I decided to get into hip hop, and I started rapping, and then somebody heard my freestyle, and then they signed me to a 360 deal, and they gave me 10 grand, and then I was in debt 100 grand, and it
Right.
magnified from there." But you
Right.
still have people that like myself, like at no point I think not only because I can't freestyle and I don't know how to rap, but I mean, it never dawned on me. And of course, I wasn't raised in the ghetto. I wasn't raised in the hood, so that might be a privilege of mine. A lot of people don't
Correct.
think black people have privileges, but that's definitely a
Correct.
privilege of mine to not be raised around that.
Correct.
But being raised in an army household, it dawned on me like maybe this is the path I'll take, and maybe that's the product of how gang violence continues. Is if you're raised in it, that's all you know.
Yes.
You're not exposed to alternatives. Like I've been to Key West like during COVID. I'm like, they're not living like most people. These people are acting like nothing's wrong. Like they're
Correct.
just another mojito, please. And like it's just different down there. The yachts, please refill. No, I don't care about gas prices. Fill the yacht up, please. It's different. And so that
Correct.
might be a point there as far as why gang violence tends to continue is that people are being born into it. A lot of it two single mothers, and then trying to prevent someone from going into gang violence, but they see the money, they see the resources there. That's
Correct.
definitely a thing. But of course, we have to go all the way back to the beginning and what caused that. And
Correct.
I think when you reference media and how media portrays us a certain way, you still have to look at the people that are taking the money. People that are
Correct.
putting out and creating a whole genre, $1 billion genre of gang violence or sliding your hops or murder or sleeping around or sex, money, drugs, all these things. It's an entire genre that people are eating off of. And of course, the rest of us, the 99% of us who aren't in that community in terms of creating that content, we suffer by it. Just like a lot of women, it's like it's not people like yourself that are suffering because you're a single black woman, no kids. You're not part of the statistics that keep throwing around as far as black women are this, black women are that, especially in the negative aspect. But yeah, you're still affected by it. And people will look at you and say, well, she's a black woman. So I immediately have to think she's aggressive and loud and combative
Correct.
and argumentative. I'm like, I've known you for, in terms of communicating with you, it's been less than an hour that we've been talking. And I haven't picked up any type of energy that I'm like, bruh, I don't want to be in the same, I don't want to talk to her. I don't want to engage with her
Right.
because you're an exception. But the exceptions always suffer because of the rule. And I think the rule has to be questioned as far as if we take that rule and say black people are oppressed because of white people or white oppression. I'm like, all right, well, we'll take a note on that. But let's look at what's feeding this fire internally. And why is this fire continually? I don't care who owns the company, who is giving the company the ability to make money? Because these companies
Correct.
get shut down immediately if they're not profitable. The WNBA is holding on by a thread only because the WNBA, the NBA is subsidizing it and feeding cash into it. The military will have broken airframes and we'll keep feeding money into it. I'm like, just do
Mhm.
away with it. Start over. I'm like, nope, we're gonna pour money into it. As long as the black community is killing each other and we're creating songs about it and we're creating music videos about it and Bad Girls Club and we have three women going to a restaurant and tearing that junk up from the roots just because they didn't get the right sauce or some foolishness. And that's what's going to get the most clicks, obviously, because media, they don't care about positivity, they care about what gets profits. I think that's I think that's where we have to kind of cut off the head of the snake. And I don't think there's any incentive to, as long as people are getting paid, because as much as we talk
Correct.
about togetherness and the black community, we're all out for ourselves. And as long as I get the bag, as long as I get my check, as long as my
Correct.
money come through and my kids are fed, my family's fed, we don't care about the next person. I'm like, bro, that's my ops. And
And
so
that's why
I
I
think,
said lack of integrity. And that's why I said lack of
sure.
integrity in people, period. Because like you said, it's not just to say, oh, it's only white people, because yeah, they did oppress us, but to a certain degree, now we're oppressing ourselves by continuing the cycle, like you said, by
Mm-hmm.
like I said, not only just the person that's putting the content out there, but okay, the person consuming the content. You know what I'm saying? Because
Yeah.
if I'm listening to Cardi B talking about pop this and wop that, then that speaks to my integrity as a person, because why am I even wanting to consume something like that that makes me
Mm-hmm.
look bad? And that's why, I know for me, I stopped listening to all of that type of stuff, because it is a fine line between, okay, what's entertainment and what's reality. And I think you
Mm-hmm.
made a very good point, because I came from kind of a similar background. I wasn't like a born to a teen mom or anything, and even though I was raised by a single mother, my father was still present in my life, and that always made the difference between me and people that I see around me or my peers. Because like you said, I to a certain degree had privilege in regard to, I was never homeless, I was never, lights wasn't
Mm-hmm.
ever cut out, I always had my needs met, I always had everything that I wanted. And when I got out in the real world and found out, wait, people being sexually assaulted by their family, wait, it's teen mothers, I was
Yeah.
confused, and I was thinking that that was kind of like the underbelly of our community. I was like, well, that's just some ghetto stuff.
Yeah.
That ain't me. But then I had
Mm-hmm.
to realize at the same time, we share image. So it don't matter if I think I'm
Yeah.
better than somebody. Society sees us as that's just a black person, or they just a
Yeah.
ghetto black people, or she a loud, angry black woman, like you said. And that kind of like shifting off to another top, kind of another subject. It was kind of like I questioned my blackness. I'm like, well,
Mm-hmm.
I ain't black then, because hell, if you telling me black people had to be poor and they had to struggle, am
Yeah.
I really black? And it wasn't until I started exploring, like you said, other places and other communities, and seeing like, oh, okay, so to dig deeper in the truth as to why or how did we even get this um narrative of, okay, black people just ghetto, or they this or they're
Mm-hmm.
that. And I was because like that ain't who. When I look in the past, I don't see Sojourner Truth and Coretta Scott King and all of these great grand people that
Mm-hmm.
was back in the day. They wasn't doing ghetto stuff. So where did this
Yeah.
narrative come from, that we just ghetto baby mamas, hood rats? You know what I'm saying? And why are
Mm-hmm.
we now so enthralled with that's the image that we want to perpetuate? So
Facts.
you know i I agree with you on that. Like I had a totally, I was totally removed. I didn't have a clue about none of this. I'm like, wait, huh? But now, like I said, I've always been an open-minded person to try to dig deeper, um, for the truth, and try to
Mm-hmm.
understand why. Like I always ask why. Well, why are we the angry black women? Why are we getting called ghetto? Why are black people poor? Why are we, getting locked up in prison? Why? And you have to
Yeah.
keep asking yourself to dig deeper to understand, because if not, you just let somebody, oh yeah, black people, y'all just dumb, y'all just this and that. And it's like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, we just dumb then. Okay, well, let me go be doing dumb stuff, because that's just what they said I was. You know what I mean?
Your shirt speaks volumes as far as accountability is concerned, and it pairs perfectly with integrity. But I think one thing that could be added to accountability is exposure, and there's really no excuse in 2022. With I have two MacBook Pros on my desk,
A
I got
hundred percent.
iPhone, I got iPads everywhere,
A
and
hundred
most people
percent.
got at the bare minimum a smartphone from 2 3 years ago. At
A
bare
hundred
minimum, we got
percent.
extra smartphone laying in the drawer. So exposure to like the last young lady I interviewed, She came from the Bay Area, and again, kind of raised with a silver spoon type element, like just never really went lacking for much. And when she went to Atlanta, moved from Bay Area to Atlanta, and she moved to Buckhead, or like the higher up suburb areas, and she saw black people living there, and black people living in fancy houses, 2-story, 3-story
Right.
brick houses, beautiful cars in the driveway, black families, black luxury, black middle class to high upper class lifestyles. It was culture shock for her because she had never seen black people living that way, and I
Right.
personally have never seen that. I've been to Atlanta before, but I've never been to Buckhead area. I stayed downtown. I'm always
Mm-hmm.
downtown. Like I go to New York City,
Mm-hmm.
I'm in
Mm-hmm.
Manhattan. Like I'm always downtown. But just I think a lot of black people need to be exposed to something
Correct.
and make that seem desirable. Although, and I'm not a huge fan of this normalized conversation where we're trying to make things normal. Whatever's normal is normal now. And unfortunately, the only way it changes is that the majority of people want something different. And so
Mm-hmm.
until black people stop wanting to consume Lil Baby, Gunna,
Correct.
Bond, Lil Durk, I mean, that's what we want. Meek Mill, that's what we want. We talk about the trenches. We out here, blowing smoke
Correct.
and we sliding on the ops and all
Correct.
this stuff. And unfortunately, it's so entertaining. And I admit myself, when I go to the gym, I'm not listening to poetry. I'm listening to my
Exactly.
niggas drop bars and going off on it, where I slide on my.
For
It
real.
makes me
I
angry
feel
listening
you.
to it.
I feel
It's
you.
just, and so it's hard to escape. So I think accountability is one thing, but I think human nature is the next level where we have to kind of correct our own nature and say,
Correct.
I don't want to listen to hip hop. I want to listen to something that's not violent, and I don't think that's
Correct.
going to happen anytime soon.
And like you
So
said,
it's unfortunate. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, like you said, it's more so like, and I think when I say integrity, integrity is kind of like the umbrella word for it all in regard
Mm-hmm.
to how we feel about ourselves, how we feel about each other, our levels of selfishness, those type of things. And I think what I keep thinking of is last year I went to New Orleans, and I love New Orleans, and it was like
Mm-hmm.
still kind of
Yeah.
in the middle of COVID, but so things are kind of weird. But I was with
Yeah.
two of my homegirls, and they wanted to go. It was this plantation tour that we could go on, and they was like, "Well, we should go to the plantation tour." And I'm like, "I don't want to go to. I don't want to do all that. I don't feel like being oppressed. I'm trying to be here to eat. I'm trying to have a good
Yeah.
time." And of course majority grew, so we end up going. And when
Mm.
I tell you, I was so happy that they wanted to go because it totally changed. It started making everything that I already had been working on or thinking about or researching. It made it make so much sense. And it just was so powerful and just so moving to me to go and literally stand on a plantation where people, my ancestors, I mean, my people ain't from Louisiana, but so our ancestors once were, to be standing in like on the soil where they once were. And I'm sitting here, I'm able to have on clothes and whatever I want to wear. I got on comfortable
Mm.
shoes. I got bottles of water. I ain't nobody about to come beat me or whip me. It was just powerful. And I know people are, oh, I'm an empath. I'm an empath. But
Mm.
I could feel it. You know what I'm saying? Like
Mm.
I felt so many emotions even when we were driving up to the place. Like you couldn't see anything around. It was a bunch of grass, a bunch of trees, of course,
Yeah.
the long Mississippi River. And I felt afraid. I felt like angry. I felt sad. I felt a lot of emotions. And then to actually stand on that soil and then look around and see and read the different facts, they had different recounts from enslaved people, and they had their names there, and they, had excerpts from like from their own mouths, and to see the different levels of like education. Like some of the people, they had good English and proper English, but
Mm.
others of them didn't. And to just really see all of that, to see these people's names, to see, how much they sold them for, all of that just really brought something out of me. And I'm just like, wow, how did we go from that to now we hate each other, to now we talking about
Yeah.
we don't need men and men ain't us, and oh, black men ain't this, and black men is oppressing us, when black men was the ones protecting us during that time, or they couldn't even protect themselves. They was getting beat and raped and things like that too. And it just really, I mean, it really moved me, because I'm just like, how in the hell did we get to this point today, like you said, where we're perpetuating killing each other, where we're talking about,
Mm,
yeah, sliding on the op and running this and that, and I slapped that bee up in her. How did we
yeah,
get to that when this is what our people were? And
facts.
and it just really, I mean, it really made me have to start again digging deep and digging inward and really change and unlearn a lot of the stuff that I was taught, or whether it was consciously or unconsciously or just by the way, because I'm just like, this is not who we are. We ain't hoes and,
Yeah,
laying up having sex with people and whop this and whop that. That's not who we were. And if we were those people, we wouldn't be able to stand here today. So
yeah.
how it was to me like we being so, it's like almost like we spitting on these people's graves
Mm,
today by being so disrespectful in our actions and alone how we treat one another. And it just really it just really moved me. As it was the Whitney plantation down in Louisiana. If anybody ever visited New Orleans, I would recommend any black person or any white person for that matter to go visit and just really see and really feel the
yeah,
people that was here before us.
facts. Yeah, I recently had some training in Keesler Air Force Base in Mississippi, and the environment of the state in general. And we're gonna get off this topic
Okay, yeah,
shortly.
I know. This is my
Yeah,
this is
this is
my
heavy as hell. But
it is. I love stuff like this. I'm sorry, I ain't mean to.
listen, and I rarely have these conversations because I tend to be alone in these opinions. But yeah, the state of Mississippi, and then of course I went over to New Orleans, and it was just it's a weird vibe that you immediately pick up, and is what was missing. And this is the weird thing. Like I was in Abu Dhabi and the Dubai area, and it wasn't over there. I couldn't pick up on the energy of let me just drive slowly to this neighborhood. There might be somebody watching. Like, there's a
Hmm.
negress over in that car over there.
Right.
Let me call 12 in New Orleans and Mississippi. There's an energy down there that I'm like, I don't like this energy. The houses look a certain way, and of course, it's been portrayed in the Color Purple and all these slave movies where I'm like, I've never seen Color Purple all the way through, mainly because
I
I
don't
couldn't get
want
through the
to.
first couple minutes. It's just too
No.
much, and I'm like, I'm grateful to be. And this is like a lot of rhetoric from the white community. I'm like, all right, all these black people kneeling about the national anthem, and of course we have our struggles and we have our moments where my day might come where I'm getting kneeled on and somebody whoop my ass in the street. It may come, but I attribute that to the danger of this world, the dangerous levels of free will that are attributed to humans and their agency, where humans can make decisions and that decision can be right or wrong.
Hmm.
I'm not quick to blame entire demographic and say all white people are out to get us because of the few. Because the same thing can be said about black people, where the few people that are in gangs in terms of percentage, we attribute that to all black people. Or the few black women that tear up a restaurant, we attribute that to all black women. Or the few black women who are argumentative or loud or abrasive or twerking on Instagram, we attribute that to all black women. We can't do that same thing with white people and expect to remain rational and logical. It just doesn't make sense. And so when I
Hmm.
hear blanket terms like white supremacy or the whole system is out to get me, I'm like, I think that's the few people that we're talking about. And of course, there's people in power where those people have a greater or larger impact on a set of people or a group of persons. But I'm very slow to say, all right, I know I have accountability, but the system won't let me save my money. The system won't let me invest. I'm like, it's just not true. We can all
Hmm.
invest from our phones. We all can buy land from our phones. We all can buy cars, houses, property, start businesses from our phones. And yet we use our phones to record fights
Hmm.
and start OnlyFans. I'm like, it's not true. It's
Right,
just not
right,
true. We
right.
have opportunity, and I think the outcomes are always going to be different based on the decisions that we make versus we blame white people and their skin. I'm like, yes, they used to have power over us, but I think we're trending in the right direction when we have a black president and a seemingly, I think she's Indian, but black skinned vice president. I think we're trending in the right direction. There's a black first lady, black kids living in that White House. We're trending in the right direction. We're not going backwards. We're not getting less black people in the White House. We're getting more. There's more black people in the Senate, more black people in the House, more black people in the Supreme Court, not less. So I think if we were to imagine a country that used to have slavery of black people or Africans, how would a country that's making progress look? There would be growing pains, but it would look exactly like the U.S., where it's not perfect and it's never going to be perfect. 20 years from now, 50 years from now, 100 years from now, a black person will get killed by a white cop, justified or not. It's going to be a thing 100 years from now. It's never going to be eradicated because there's going to be somebody that's going to blame racism, or somebody's going to blame the fact that he was doing something illegal. Either way, there's going to be debate. There's going to be a court case. It's going to be live streamed even more so than it is now. It's going to be a thing. So it's never going to go away completely. But like your shirt says, I'm always going to point, if I do something wrong, or if my life is the way it is right now, where I'm making a live stream on Thursday morning, I'm going to blame myself for the way my life is right now. The point is, I think there's a lot of variables to account for outside of blaming it, the color of somebody's skin, because we hate that ourselves for our skin being blamed because of something that the few people or a small percentage of people are doing.
Yeah, that's correct. And I think, and the last thing that I'll mention about this is I think the problem is people, words matter. I'm a huge person about semantics. The
Facts.
words that you use matter. So I think that, words like racism and white supremacy and systemic racism have been watered down because people use them so much and out of place.
Mm-hmm.
And when I think of white supremacy, to me, white supremacy is an ideology, it's a mindset. It's not necessarily because of the color of your skin, because in my opinion, we got a lot of dark skinned white supremacists in our own community. Feminism, Black feminists, those to me are dark skinned white supremacists. So I don't necessarily think that, just because somebody is white, they bad, or they gonna do this, or they gonna do that. But it's the idea, it's the mindset of white supremacy. And it's not something that you can see. It's not tangible. So a lot of time people throw it out there. They misuse it. Oh, they being racist. Oh, he looked at me the wrong way. He racist. Oh, she told me to stop this, and so she racist. And it's kind of like the story of the boy who cried wolf. If you keep crying wolf, nobody's gonna eventually believe you. So I think that is why, now, those words get thrown out there and people are just like, oh, well, whatever. Or, kind of like what you said, it's like, oh, well, if something happened, I'm not going to not blame myself for it. But it's because people have used the word so much and so interchangeably and out of place that and they're just saying it to, I think, avoid accountability in certain degrees. So it's kind of like a cop-out, but it's like, okay, you're using it so much that now the real meaning has gotten watered down, or people don't even believe that it's real, or, even people in our own community don't believe that we're being oppressed or whatever, because people just use the word so much and so loosely.